Well, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to talk about 3 different Zen stories today. First, examines how we respond to other people's calls, other people's questions of us. The second examines how we function in the present moment while being aware of this sense of time, of being in a life that has a beginning and an end, at how to value the present in the midst of that. And the third story examines how we can function with less disappointment when things don't go the way we want. Something all of us know about. So the first is a koan from the Mumonkan, Gateless Barrier. Case number 5, Huihyang Up a Tree. And this is Robert Aiken's translation. The priest, Xiang Yan, said, "It is as though you were up in a tree, hanging from a branch with your teeth. Your hands and feet cannot touch any branch. Someone appears beneath the tree and asks, 'What is the meaning of Bodhidharma's coming from the west?' If you do not answer, you evade your responsibility. If you do answer, you lose your life. What do you do?" This is a well-known case, of course. So the image is that we're hanging from a tree by our teeth. We can't touch any branch. So a fairly precarious situation. And then someone casually meanders underneath the tree, looks up at you and goes, what's the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the west? And is expecting and waiting for us to answer. And we're like, I'm hanging from a tree by my teeth. So this image of hanging from a tree by our teeth, it's a powerful image, and a lot of the Zen stories have these powerful images to help us. It's a very precise moment. If you are hanging from a tree by your teeth, it's right now, you're right there. And right there at that time, someone asks a question of you. So we have these moments many times in a day, usually. Unexpected moments in which a kind of a request is made of us. They don't have to be dramatic requests like in this story. They're very simple little fleeting moments. It might be, you're driving in the traffic and there's a moment of merging between you and another car. How do you navigate that moment of merging? Is it best to sort of speed up a bit and get in front of that car? Is it best to slow down and let them get in front of you? We just have so many moments like this that are opportunities for us to be engaging with others in a way that is beneficial to them and still taking care of ourselves. Sometimes these sorts of moments are very simple, like 2 cars merging. It's usually pretty straightforward. Sometimes they're a little more complicated, and there's a potential for things to not go well. I had a little experience yesterday. I was riding my bike along a well-known trail, dirt trail, but there was a big construction project happening, and for a short period of time, couple of 100 meters, the construction road overlapped with the bike trail. And as I was going down on my mountain bike, a truck stopped and said to me, "You're not allowed to be here. This is a construction road." But I'd been on the same trail the day before, and I knew that in a very short amount of time, the two trails were going to split again, and I'd be back on the mountain bike trail. So in that moment, I could have either, out of nervousness, just acquiesced to this man in a big truck and just gone okay and sort of turned around, which would have been not very convenient for my plans for the day. Or I could have been a little bit combative, like, "I know what I'm doing, don't tell me what to do," kind of thing. So it was a totally unexpected moment. It just arose. I had no plans on bumping into a truck on this piece of road. But that was a little like this person coming up under the tree, because all of us, no matter what our interactions, there is a general sense that we're really trying to navigate our lives in a way to be at ease, to have some sort of happiness, to feel safe. And so for that man in the truck, whatever his motivation for talking to me was, I don't know, but it's best for me to assume that somehow he's just trying to navigate his life well, and he felt some responsibility to say something to me. So it was a moment to work out, how do I care for his needs and care for my needs? And I think I did that quite well. So it was very clear that I am going to continue on this trail, but thank you so much for taking the time to check on me. So I cared for him and I cared for myself. And went on my way. And I think you sort of went like, "Well, okay, I'm not going to argue with that one." And even in there, to be honest, there was a little bit of a sort of a feminist energy, like, I'm advocating for women here too. I'm not just going to go, "Okay, sorry. It's okay, sir, I know what I'm doing. I was on this trail yesterday." A little standing up for myself and for women even. So there's a lot of subtleties in all of our interactions. And the more we practice our Zen, the more we're likely, when these moments arise, to navigate them well. So in this story, it says in this koan, this person asks, what is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West? If we do not answer, we evade our responsibility. But if we do answer, we lose our life. Because, of course, if you have to answer that question and you're holding on by your teeth, you're going to fall. You're going to fall. And one way we can think about this letting go and falling is letting go a little bit of our attachment to control, a little bit of our attachment to self, to security, and being willing to kind of dance with this other person, be willing to kind of free fall a little bit and see what happens. It's always a risk to engage with others. There's a risk involved in that. It becomes the two of you. You don't have full control over what goes on. And it's a beautiful, gracious thing to be willing to step into a little bit of an unknown with another person. Let yourself fall from that tree. Lose a little bit of that self-identification for the benefit of the other person who's asking this question of you. And even though we're letting go of a certain security by letting go and engaging with others, we at the same time can discover that there's this greater security, which is the security of just pure awareness. Our capacity to just be aware in every moment is there, and it's very secure. It's very reliable. So there is an actual security in just the pure fact of awareness, and that we can rely on. And having that, experiencing that through our Zazen allows us to take more risks, to let go of that branch when we're called to do so. So this question, what is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West, is a well-known question. It's in many of the different Zen stories. And Bodhidharma was our ancestor, the 28th ancestor from Shakyamuni Buddha. So that means sort of 28 face-to-face transmissions across the generations from the historical Buddha to Bodhidharma. And his teacher was Prajnatara in India. And so, and then he brought Buddhism from India across to China. And he's sort of a mythical figure. The actual details of his real life are fairly fuzzy, and in many ways he's possibly a kind of a construction of various figures, but he's a large figure. In fact, we can't see it with, maybe I can just tip this back for a minute. That middle woodcut, is that showing up on that screen? Is that going to come up? That's Bodhidharma up there in the middle above our Buddha statue. The one above that is Bodhidharma. And in fact, Sarah knows this picture well. Sarah from Santa Cruz knows this picture very well. So he brought the teachings to China. So the question, what is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West, is a question about what are the teachings? Why did someone go to so much trouble to travel great distance to bring the teachings to another land? What is this all about? What is the great matter? What is the essential questions of life? And he's portrayed with big bulging eyes. I mean, he wasn't Chinese, so he had a very different look. And he's sometimes called the blue-eyed barbarian, which was like a fond, friendly kind of compliment, not an insult to call him that. And he's portrayed with these big bulging eyes and this fierce face. And he's well known for having faced a wall for 9 years. And we talked about this, I think, last week. It came up in last week's talk. Facing a wall for 9 years, which, maybe that is what he did, or for a long period of time in a cave. But I think what's interesting for us is that can we face just this wall of our life? Can we face what's arising in front of us for a day, for a moment, for 9 years, for our whole life? Can we be with whatever is arising rather than being lost in thoughts about the past or the future, or fantasies about possibilities, or caught up by our opinions that overlay our experience so that we can't see very well? Can we, instead of doing that, face the wall of our life? And another story about Bodhidharma is that he trained the monks at Shaolin Temple. When he was there, he felt that they were not very physically strong, so he developed a strengthening series of exercises that then are said to have turned into sort of the Shaolin martial arts that he developed there. And the many other famous stories, one that we mentioned, I think, last week too, is that his disciple and successor, Huike, cut off his arm to show his devotion and his willingness to want to study with Bodhidharma. And I was thinking about that image of standing in the snow and cutting off your arm to show how much you wanted to train. As dramatic as that seems, we do have our version of that. In modern society, it might sound very sanitized, but it's not. In modern society, people work long hours, and to find time to come and sit in the mornings, or to come and sit at night, or to negotiate with your family to take a day so that you can come and do a zazen kai, or to negotiate with your family or with your employer to have a week off to do a retreat. That's standing in the snow all night. That's cutting off an arm. That's our version of it, and it's a beautiful and sacred thing that people take the time, just like we are all doing right now, taking the time to listen to the teachings. It's not always easy to find the time in modern society. So another story that's got a little bit of a similar quality comes from this very sweet, tiny little book called Zen Flesh, Zen Bones, and it's got a collection of 100 stories, old stories. And I haven't heard this story told much recently, but decades ago, people were telling this story a lot. So some of you may know this story quite well. A parable. A man traveling across a field encountered a tiger. He fled, the tiger after him. Coming to a precipice, he caught hold of the root of a wild vine and swung himself down over the edge. The tiger sniffed at him from above. Trembling, the man looked down to where, far below, another tiger was waiting to eat him. Only the vine sustained him. 2 mice, one white and one black, began little by little gnawing at the vine. The man saw a luscious strawberry near him. Grasping the vine with one hand, he plucked the strawberry with the other and popped it in his mouth and said, delicious. So the first story was about how do we respond to others, and this story is how do we, in the midst of our lives, where we are born and at some point we are going to die, which is the symbolism of the 2 mice gnawing at the rope, one black, one white. Day and night passes. Time is short. We don't know when our end will come. How can we, with the knowledge of all of that, and with this tiger at the top and the tiger at the bottom, which, symbolic of the stresses of life. Life is beautiful, but life also has its stresses. And those stresses can feel quite life-threatening at times. They're often not life-threatening, but they can feel life-threatening. Emotionally, they can feel life-threatening. How do we, in the midst of all of that, be able to enjoy the incredible beauty of the world? So in this story, he sees a little wild strawberry growing just near where he's hanging, and he plucks it and eats it and says, how delicious. So throughout our day, there's pretty much for all of us, I would say, the capacity to simply look out the window and see a tree, or hear a bird, or sip a warm cup of tea, or feel a comfortable fabric against our skin, or see a picture on the wall. Luckily, I think for all of us, we are not in a situation where we're denied the capacity to simply enjoy something. And the last story I'd like to tell is a koan from the miscellaneous collection of koans in the Harada Yasutani Diamond Sangha tradition. And it goes like this. Someone comes to you in a dream and asks, what is the meaning of Bodhidharma coming from the West? If you do not speak, you neglect your duty. What do you do? So this metaphor of dream is a little bit tricky for people. Often people don't like the metaphor of the dream, and I rarely talk about it because I'm aware that people find it hard, but I'd like to see if I can say a little bit about it today that hopefully might land productively. So when we have dreams in bed at night, we construct with our mind a whole story. A whole thing plays out in our dream at night. And when we're in that dream, it feels completely true. And most people aren't engaged in sort of lucid dreaming. Most of us do not have lucid dreaming capacity where we can be in a dream and know it's a dream. The majority of people, when they're having a dream and they're an actor in the dream, a character in the dream, whether you're a figure in the actual dream or an observer watching the dream, you're in the dream and it is happening and you are responding to things. And yet when we wake up, we understand fully that it was a construction of our mind. We do understand that. And we're often quite relieved that it turned out to be just a construction in our mind. And so our experience of daily life, although it's not the same as the dreams that we have at night, although they, of course, are a subset of our daily life, they're a subset of our life, although our experience during the day is not the same as in a dream, there are some dreamlike qualities that I think are valuable to reflect on. So everything that we're experiencing, the experiences are coming through our senses, and we are converting them into a narrative, and then we are telling ourselves that story of what is going on. And that story that we're telling about what is going on is not accurate. It's an interpretation, it's a part, you could say, made partially true, but I don't even know that you could quite say that. But it's definitely an interpretation. And in that sense, it's not actually real. It's our understanding, our experience of something, but it's not the something. It's the experience of an unknowable something. It's our experience of an unknowable world. And if we can hold this knowledge that our experience of things has this dreamlike quality of not actually being as real as it feels, this is where the metaphor with the dream is very useful. It's not as real as it feels. In the dream, we know it's not real at all. We wake up and go, oh my gosh, glad that didn't really happen. But in the daytime, it's also not as real as it feels. If we can remember that, when things happen that don't quite go the way we want them to go, it really can be a lot easier to pivot at that moment and adapt to the new circumstance. So, as some of you might know, the day before yesterday, my son in America, who's 19 years old, was supposed to board an aeroplane and arrive in Australia. But when he got to the airport, his passport only had 5.5 months validity, and you need to have 6 months validity to get a visa. And so he simply was told, you just can't get on the plane. So he didn't go on the plane, he lost his ticket, and so he's not coming. And there you go, just like that. And he called me in the middle of the night because he was on America time, and we just talked and quickly realized there was just no point in getting upset. There was just no point whatsoever. The ticket was gone, the window had closed, he's not going to be able to come. So then we just had a little laugh about what would be some comforting carbs to eat. So I said, what about croissant and some tea? And he went, I think I'll get a bagel and cream cheese. I said, yes, very Californian, go get a bagel and cream cheese. And so that's what he did. and we just laughed. It was like the end of it. And he sort of felt a bit sheepish. So having not thought that through clearly enough, fine. So there was a dreamlike quality. I had a sense of, as we had that conversation, and then I hung up the phone and then lay back down on my pillow, I thought about all the visions I'd had of what he and I were going to do, how I was going to show him Canberra, how we were going to go on mountain bikes together, how he'd see his brother and sister, cousins were going to come and visit, all of that had been in my mind, and just had to let it all go. None of it had actually even been real. It had all been ideas I'd had in my mind. All of it had just been ideas. So holding this dreamlike quality means that we can pivot much more easily when things don't go the way we want. And at the same time, it doesn't stop us being quite practical. So both my son and I said, right, now that you've got these 12 days that you didn't think you were going to have, renew both your passports. Renew your Australian and your American passport. Don't go and do something else. Get that happening. And it also didn't stop me being aware of the carbon footprint that he and I were creating by wanting to see each other. So we can still function in a practical way while holding a certain dreamlike, remembering the certain dreamlike quality of our lives. So this dreamlike quality also, besides protecting us from disappointment, it can also help us be less attached to our opinions and less likely to be angry. It's very beneficial. It softens the edges of our belief in our own thoughts. It just softens the edges a little bit. I think I'll stop there so that if people would like to ask questions or comment, please do so on Zoom or in the Zendo. Alex.
I'd like to challenge. You said that when we wake up, we realize that those dreams are not real. We're not real. And I agree with everything that you said. I just feel like there's another aspect where that dream at the time, that is real. And like when we're experiencing whatever we're experiencing, even if it's an idea, that's reality.
You're right. You're right.
And it also made me think of something where the Buddha said that you should maintain the precepts in your dreams as well as in your waking life.
Yes.
So it's still important. It's not just a dream and you can just whatever.
Right.
It's real. It's right here. And it's still a chance to respond.
Yes. Thank you. Our wise Sangha members. And it is very true that when we practice, we do actually start responding differently in our dreams. It does happen. I've mentioned this in talks before, that I notice that I actually do respond differently in my dreams. And some of you might have noticed that too, or you might start to notice that in fact you are more skillful in your dreams. It's a lovely feeling. You feel that.